The words left Captain Elias Lyon's lips like a seismic tremor, rippling through the Galactic Council chamber. His voice, though steady and deliberate, seemed to unsettle the very air. The vast dome, built to amplify the grandeur of galactic diplomacy, now felt oppressively silent, as though the architecture itself recoiled from the sheer audacity of the human standing alone in its center. Alien dignitaries exchanged uneasy glances. Some, like the Dreek representative, an insectoid with glistening chitin and serrated mandibles, clicked nervously, their antennae twitching erratically. Others, such as the imposing Zarthan delegate, a behemoth of muscle and plated scales, leaned forward in visible disdain. The silence stretched, broken only by the subtle hum of the chamber's hollow projectors displaying tactical readouts of humanity's frontier. Envoy Fricks, a quivering gelatinous entity whose shimmering core pulsed erratically, broke the silence. "Captain Lyons," Fricks said, his voice a wet, gurgling whisper. "Your species' refusal to submit to coalition authority defies all logic. We offer the opportunity for integration, peaceful coexistence. But instead, you persist in this obstinacy." The last word sloshed from his form like an accusation. Lyons took a deliberate step forward, his boots striking the smooth, obsidian floor with a sharpness that echoed across the chamber. He smiled faintly, a disarming expression that, to the aliens, seemed both bewildering and menacing. "I hear a lot of big words," Lyons said, his voice calm but with an unmistakable edge. "Integration, coexistence, authority. Where I come from, we call it bullying. And where I come from, we don't take kindly to bullies." A murmur rippled through the chamber, alien delegates reacting with mixtures of outrage and discomfort. Fricks, shimmering brighter now with evident frustration, flared outward. "This is not bullying, Captain." "It is. Call it whatever you want," Lyons interrupted sharply. His tone carried a finality that froze even the most hardened of the council members. "You think humans are weak because we're new on the galactic stage. Because we don't have your fancy biotech or centuries of history in space. But let me remind you of something. We've been fighting wars long before we even left our own atmosphere. It's practically in our DNA. So if you're looking for a fight..." He paused, his eyes scanning the assembly, his gaze as unrelenting as the Earth's sun. "Fine. I'll handle it." With that, Lyons turned and left, the echo of his footsteps fading into the stunned silence. A galaxy misjudges humanity, the Galactic Council was left reeling. It was inconceivable. A lone human, unadorned and unenhanced, had just walked into the heart of interstellar diplomacy and declared that his fledgling species would stand alone against a coalition representing nearly half the galaxy's military might. To the coalition, humanity's behavior bordered on madness. For centuries, the galactic powers had thrived on carefully cultivated hierarchies and protocols, believing themselves to be the arbiters of civilization. The idea of a species rejecting such benevolent oversight was more than an insult. It was an existential affront. "The humans lack perspective," growled Commander Arkoth, a hulking Zarthan general with emerald-green scales that gleamed under the council chamber's light. "They've grown arrogant on their isolated world, blind to the realities of galactic power." His serrated tail thumped against the floor with impatience. Councillor Meziara, a luminously ethereal figure from the Aero Collective, disagreed, her translucent wings quivering as she spoke. "Perhaps we miscalculated," she admitted, her voice a melodic hum. "The humans are unpredictable. Their history is riddled with conflict and survival against insurmountable odds. Perhaps they believe they can defy us as they have defied nature." "Nonsense," barked Envoy Fricks. "Their history is irrelevant. They are a primitive species. Their defiance is nothing more than a desperate display." But doubt lingered in the chamber. In the days following Lyon's departure, that doubt would grow into unease, then fear. The war begins. The coalition's assault began with all the force one would expect from an alliance of galactic superpowers. The Dreeks deployed their famed stealth fleets, slipping past human outposts and vanishing into the shadows to disrupt supply lines. The Zarthans unleashed their colossal dreadnoughts, bristling with plasma cannons capable of turning entire cities to ash. And the Truic, with their unstoppable legions bred specifically for war, began planetary invasions with ruthless efficiency. Initially, it seemed the coalition would crush humanity swiftly, but the humans did not fight like other species. They did not line up in orderly ranks or adhere to predictable strategies. They did not rely solely on their technology, which the coalition had dismissed as rudimentary. Instead, they relied on ingenuity, grit, and an uncanny ability to turn their disadvantages into strengths. When the Dreek stealth fleets disappeared without a trace, their commanders assumed technical malfunctions. In reality, human engineers had devised a way to track the faint gravitational distortions left by their cloaked ships, an innovation born from centuries of studying black holes and gravitational waves. When the Zarthan dreadnoughts entered human space, they found themselves bogged down in seemingly endless fields of mines. Mines that were little more than repurposed asteroids laced with explosives, yet deployed with such precision that even the Zarthan's advanced AI systems couldn't avoid them. And when the Truic landed their first wave of troops on a human colony world, they expected to meet organized resistance. Instead, they found abandoned cities, eerie silence, and a labyrinth of traps and ambushes. Human snipers, hidden miles away, picked off commanders with uncanny precision. Entire battalions vanished into dense forests, pursued by squads of human guerrillas who seemed to know every inch of the terrain. Psychological warfare, but it wasn't just the physical battles that humanity won. It was the psychological war, a campaign of terror and confusion that the coalition was wholly unprepared for. Zarthan pilots reported strange signals interrupting their communications, voices speaking in fractured versions of their language, whispering taunts and threats. Dreek soldiers began seeing shadows moving where no living being should be, their finely tuned senses overwhelmed by paranoia. Truic warriors, bred to fear nothing, found themselves hesitating in the dark, unnerved by the strange music that seemed to emanate from nowhere, songs in a language they didn't understand, yet hauntingly beautiful. What are they? A young Truic officer stammered, clutching his weapon as the distant sound of human laughter echoed through the jungle. They are death, his commander replied grimly. Death made flesh. The final blow. By the time the coalition realized the full extent of their miscalculation, it was too late. The humans had not merely survived, they had turned the tide. Coalition fleets retreated in disarray, pursued by human ships that moved with terrifying efficiency. Entire planets were abandoned, their garrisons broken by the relentless psychological onslaught. At the Galactic Council, the remaining leaders gathered once more, their pride shattered. Fricks, now dim and deflated, addressed the assembly. They have no regard for order, he murmured. No respect for protocols or traditions. How can we fight something that refuses to play by the rules? Councillor Meziara, her luminous form dimmed by despair, responded softly. Perhaps we were wrong to impose our rules on them. As the council debated surrender, humanity sent one final message, a simple, haunting transmission. You wanted to see what we could handle. Now, in the aftermath, the galaxy would speak of humanity with equal parts fear and respect. They had faced the full might of the galaxy and emerged victorious, not through superior technology or numbers, but through their indomitable will, their ingenuity, and their refusal to yield. For centuries, alien children would whisper the story of the defiant human captain who stood alone and said, "Fine, I'll handle it." And the galaxy learned to never challenge a human again.